Hi, my name is Robin Finney. I'm a writer, a solo world traveler, an international speaker, and model. Had you asked me that 2 weeks ago, I would have absolutely told you something totally different. In fact, even coming here this week, I arrived here on Monday, and I'm walking down the street, just walking on a mission, going to a coffee shop, and this tour guide guy stops me. And he's like, hey, would you like to do a tour? And I said, actually, I'm in town for a retreat. I don't know how much time I'm going to have. And he started asking me questions about the retreat. And I mentioned coaches. And he said, oh, what kind of coach are you? And I said, I'm a confidence coach. I lead retreats. I do this. And I painted this whole picture of what I'm not or haven't been doing. And what I realized is I've been doing this my whole life. In fact, it started when I was a little girl. I've always been so really into, I love fashion. I've been into fashion my whole life. And my grandma Finney was actually a seamstress, and she made many of our dresses when we were kids. And I remember I admired her so much, and I just loved watching her, and I would get excited when she would send us clothes. And she actually passed away when I was 8 years old. She died in a car accident. And I just adored my grandma Finney. And I remember when I was 7 years old, we were visiting in Colorado. I'm playing in her sewing machine, or her sewing room, and I look over and I see this red permanent marker. And I'm like, ooh, that looks fun. And for whatever reason, 7-year-old Robin looks at that and doesn't think marker, she thinks lipstick. So I take that permanent marker and I go in the bathroom and I start tracing on lips. And I'm so proud of myself, and I come out and I'm walking around, I'm like, oh, this is great. And my grandma stops and she's, what in the world did you just do? And for my grandma, I can see now that she was concerned and thinking, oh, here's this child putting poison on her lips. But to that 7-year-old child, it stopped me because I was just playing and I thought I was doing something fun and innocent. And then I started noticing that pattern continue to show up in my life. In 6th grade, I remember all my friends, they had these cut-off shorts and I wanted some. So I went and got some. But my school had a rule that if your shorts were longer than your fingertips, then you couldn't wear them. And I was tall and lanky, and the shorts were the same length, same kind as everybody else, but on me they were shorter because I had long legs. And I got sent home and I had to, they made me put on something else and get new clothes. And it just continued, and I realized that every time I would try to show up, I would do it so innocently, and I would be following something that I just wanted. And then somebody would stop me and remind me, no, that's actually not how we do it, or not what we do. And this patterns continued in my life, and it continued with just the way I was raised, with my religious background in the Church of Christ. And I remember going to a camp one year, and it was the same thing. The shorts, the length was even worse at this camp. They had to be below the knee. And I'm like, those aren't even shorts. And I had to have special shorts made by my friend's grandmother, who had no fashion sense whatsoever. And I had to wear these shorts to this camp. And I remember I was being bullied by all these girls who were there because I didn't have proper clothing. And so again, it was every time I wanted to show up, it was just no, you can't. And so I've realized that I've just been walking around life with this identity of I don't really know who I am. And so when I was in high school and I did speech, that was my passion, and I knew. I just loved being on stage. It was so fun, and I just loved being in the spotlight. But then it just kept showing up no, that's not who you are. You need to tone it down. And so I kind of did. I picked what I call the cop-out major in college, And I just continued to follow in everybody else's footsteps. And I took the first job out of college. And then 11 years later, I was at the same job. And every single year, even when I started the job, I was like, I'm gonna do this 6 months and then I'll find a real job. I'm gonna make it 1 year and then I'll figure it out. And it just continued to have that story and that pattern. And finally, thankfully, I went through a lot of transformational work and retreats and meditation, and I quit my job and I set off, and for the first time in my life, I followed my path and followed my dream of traveling the world. And it was in my travels that I learned about my real passion of doing photo shoots and modeling and being in the spotlight. And it was interesting, I did my very first photo shoot in Mexico last year. And I picked an outfit that I really loved. It was this really awesome, hot, sexy red lace romper. And again, I found myself being that little girl again. I showed up and I didn't feel like anything was wrong with what I was wearing, until my dad made a comment that he couldn't even look at my photos because of what I was wearing. And it just continued to show up that way, but I kept pushing through because I knew this is what I want to do. And I finally got to the point as I stood on stage 2 weeks ago in New Zealand and told people that I am on a mission to do photo shoots in countries all over the world, that I finally owned it, that I am a model. And I want to just remind you that whatever it is in life that you find yourself just like battling at, and you think that you can't show up and you can't own that and you can't claim that, to just do that. Just look in the mirror. And even if that's where you start, just look in the mirror and say, I'm Robin Finney. I'm a writer, I'm a world traveler, I'm an international speaker and model. Thank you.